In today's video, I'm going to talk about one of the biggest stories in the world right now, China's real estate crisis. You may have heard of Evergrande, the giant property developer that is on the brink of defaulting on its massive debts. But Evergrande is not the only one. Many other Chinese developers are also struggling to repay their loans, and the whole sector is facing a severe cash crunch. Why does this matter? Well, because real estate is a huge part of China's economy. It accounts for about 30% of GDP, 70% of household wealth, and 80% of local government revenue. It also affects millions of people who have bought homes that are not yet completed or invested in wealth management products that are linked to property projects. So what caused this crisis? And what are the implications for China and the world? Let's find out. The root of the problem lies in China's rapid urbanization and economic growth over the past 2 decades. To meet the demand for housing and infrastructure, developers borrowed heavily from banks, shadow lenders, and retail investors. They also engaged in speculative land hoarding, overbuilding, and price manipulation. The government tried to rein in this excess by imposing various regulations, such as limiting debt ratios, restricting home purchases, and curbing land sales. These measures are known as the 3 red lines and the 3 highs. However, these policies also had unintended consequences. They squeezed developers' cash flow and profitability, making it harder for them to service their debts and complete their projects. They also reduced consumer confidence and demand for new homes, leading to a slump in sales and prices. As a result, many developers are now facing a liquidity crisis. Evergrande, for example, has more than $300 billion in liabilities and has missed several interest payments since September 2021. Other major developers, such as Kaisa, Fantasia, Sunac, Scenic, and Modern Land, have also defaulted or delayed payments on their bonds. The crisis has also spilled over to other sectors of the economy. Suppliers, contractors, workers, banks, and investors are all exposed to the risk of non-payment or losses. The construction industry, which employs about 50 million people, has slowed down significantly. Local governments, which rely on land sales for revenue, have seen their fiscal situation deteriorate. The impact of the crisis is not limited to China. It also affects global markets and investors who hold Chinese bonds or stocks. It also poses a threat to the stability of the global financial system and the recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. So what is the government doing to solve this crisis? And what are the challenges ahead? The government has adopted a dual approach. On one hand, it wants to prevent a systemic collapse that could trigger social unrest and contagion. On the other hand, it wants to avoid a bailout that could encourage moral hazard and undermine its regulatory goals. Therefore, the government has been trying to facilitate an orderly restructuring of the troubled developers while ensuring that their obligations to homebuyers and workers are met. It has also been providing liquidity support to banks and markets while maintaining its monetary policy stance. For example, the government has allowed Evergrande to negotiate with its creditors on a debt restructuring plan that would involve swapping some of its debt for equity or assets. The government has also urged Evergrande to prioritize delivering homes to its customers who have paid deposits or mortgages. The government has also instructed local authorities to help resolve disputes between Evergrande and its suppliers and contractors. Similarly, the government has allowed other developers to restructure their debts through various means, such as asset sales, equity injections, debt swaps, or mergers. The government has also encouraged developers to speed up their project completion and delivery rates. At the same time, the government has been providing liquidity support to banks and markets to prevent a credit crunch or a panic sell-off. The central bank has injected hundreds of billions of yuan into the banking system through various channels. The central bank has also cut its reserve requirement ratio for banks twice since July 2021. However, this approach is not without risks and difficulties. The government faces a delicate balancing act between maintaining stability and enforcing discipline. It also faces a trade-off between supporting growth and curbing leverage. It also has to deal with the potential backlash from angry investors and homeowners who may feel cheated or betrayed. China also has to address the deeper structural issues that underlie the crisis. These include reforming the land system, improving the housing supply and affordability, diversifying local government revenue sources, developing a more robust legal framework for bankruptcy and debt resolution, and enhancing financial regulation and supervision. In conclusion, China's real estate crisis is a complex and evolving situation that poses significant challenges for the country's economy and society. It also has important implications for the global economy and financial system. The outcome of this crisis will depend on how well the government can manage the trade-offs and risks involved in resolving it. Now let me give you some more details about each of these points. First of all, how did China's real estate boom turn into a bust? As I mentioned earlier, China's urbanization and economic growth created a huge demand for housing and infrastructure in the past 2 decades. According to official statistics, China's urban population increased from 36% in 2000 to 61% in 2020, adding more than 400 million people to the cities. China also built more than 100,000 kilometers of highways, 37,000 kilometers of high-speed railways, and hundreds of airports and subway lines during this period. To meet this demand, developers borrowed heavily from various sources. According to the IMF, China's real estate sector debt reached 39% of GDP in 2020, up from 18% in 2008. Of this, about 60% was owed by developers, 20% by local governments, and 20% by households. The developers also relied on shadow banking and wealth management products to raise funds from retail investors, often promising high returns and guarantees. The developers also engaged in speculative land hoarding, overbuilding, and price manipulation. They bought land at high prices, hoping to sell it later at higher prices or use it as collateral for more loans. They also built more homes than the market could absorb, creating a huge inventory of unsold or unfinished units. They also inflated the prices of their homes by creating artificial scarcity or using fake sales contracts. The government tried to rein in this excess by imposing various regulations, such as limiting debt ratios, restricting home purchases, and curbing land sales. These measures are known as the 3 red lines and the 3 highs. The 3 red lines are a set of financial indicators that the government introduced in 2020 to assess the health of developers. They are a liability-to-asset ratio, excluding advance receipts, of no more than 70%, a net debt-to-equity ratio of no more than 100%, and a cash-to-short-term debt ratio of no less than 1. Developers that cross these red lines face restrictions on their borrowing and expansion. The 3 highs are a set of policies that the government implemented in 2021 to cool down the housing market. They are high down payments, high mortgage rates, and high taxes. These policies aim to discourage speculation and leverage among home buyers and investors. However, these policies also had unintended consequences. They squeezed developers' cash flow and profitability, making it harder for them to service their debts and complete their projects. They also reduced consumer confidence and demand for new homes, leading to a slump in sales and prices. As a result, many developers are now facing a liquidity crisis. Evergrande, for example, has more than $300 billion in liabilities and has missed several interest payments since September 2021. Other major developers, such as Kaisa, Fantasia, Sunac, Cynic, and Modern Land, have also defaulted or delayed payments on their bonds. Secondly, how did the crisis spill over to other sectors of the economy? The crisis has also spilled over to other sectors of the economy. Suppliers, contractors, workers, banks, and investors are all exposed to the risk of non-payment or losses. Suppliers are those who provide materials or services to developers for their projects. They include steel makers, cement producers, glass manufacturers, furniture makers, electricians, plumbers, etc. Many of them have not been paid by developers for months or even years. Some of them have staged protests or blocked roads to demand their money back. Contractors are those who undertake construction work for developers. They include builders, engineers, architects, etc. Many of them have also not been paid by developers or have seen their contracts canceled or delayed. Some of them have laid off workers or gone bankrupt. Workers are those who work for suppliers or contractors on construction sites. They include migrant workers from rural areas who make up most of the labor force in the industry. Many of them have not received their wages or Social Security benefits from their employers. Some of them have returned to their hometowns or sought other jobs. Banks are those who lend money to developers or homebuyers for property projects. They include state-owned banks, joint stock banks, city commercial banks, rural commercial banks, etc. Many of them have seen their asset quality deteriorate as developers or homebuyers default on their loans or mortgages. Some of them have tightened their lending standards or increased their provisions for bad debts. Investors are those who buy bonds or stocks issued. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed and want more content from the channel for economics and finance, subscribe to Wi-Fi Bread. And have a great rest of your day.